Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is Jones. Report is for the 5th. Well, we continue to plug higher, breaking into a new area. Pretty consistent with what we've seen. We have obviously the crossover, starting to see the beginnings of a little bit of fade, but at the end of the day, the shorts had just completely collapsed here in the white on the NBI. And that wasn't going to be much of a factor for them doing anything. And we're actually getting a DOC green crossing over sign, so that'll be significant as well. That will help maintain things. Likewise for the NQ, so we can see both NASDAQ and S&P performing in kind now. So we have that unification, so to speak, which is helpful. It makes it easier to derive when there's going to be less of a kind of flux period, which is kind of that sideways action you typically see when the markets are not aligned, because one's not able to drive the other, and it just becomes a mess. But now that they're back in congruency, things will be clear. Fed speak, treasuries, this still is just back and forth in a range, because at the end of the day, they're going to have to be more accommodating to some aspect of it, simply because they're hamstrung. They really can't raise rates too much. We saw what it did to the deficits. It becomes astronomical, and the spending isn't stopping. Inflation, well, that's here, and it'll be a question of how fast changes may drive it lower, or if demand picks up enough that it's able to keep it under wraps. From the euro, it's going to be a continued fight at this particular stage, because it's just hard to justify why anyone would value a euro other than people who are living there. But that's a secondary issue, and of course, it just means that central banks have to coordinate to keep these things from falling apart, so to speak. We should see better action from gold, and that has not been there at this particular point. But I've pointed out a lot of reasons why the gold market tends to underperform overall, simply because of the amount of paper that's sold as gold. All the derivatives and everything done in paper transaction, it allows for I'm not going to call it shenanigans. I'm just going to say that the reality is that if you were actually trading the metal itself, it would be far different from an actual practical standpoint. But we do see that differential as it's developing here in crypto. Bitcoin breaking further and further ahead. Pretty clean. The signals for this have been quite perfect. There isn't anything oddly speculative about it, simply because at times it has a higher beta. The reality is the currencies for regular countries have moved as much in recent times, and it's just simply because the changing economic model of what's developing with the massive debt and everything is really starting to have an impact. When ETH likewise make a similar move and continuing even in today. I don't know that it abates at any time soon, because why would it? There's no expectation of meaningful change. Yes, it's talked about with Doge now. Well, we'll see, because I don't think anyone's really all that convinced. We can see from a 50K standpoint, we had the NBI white spike come up, but at the same time, you had cyan under red. So you were sort of that whole period waiting for the decay. Well, it's just beginning now, but with only a 5 reading, the best you're going to get is a support move back to like 76%, and worst case 50, unless you get a significant spike up there. Also fighting shakeout with rising gold. Not so smart to try and fight that. Good points take profits at that particular stage. From an intraday standpoint, you can see again, this is that play with the options, you drive it down, get some short interest going, and then boom, the big reversal for the calls going up. And then in the post market, they tried to fill some of it back, not very successfully. There was a lot more room that could have brought it back, but we didn't really have full positive extremes until much later, which just shows you how much cash is actually flowing into the market. So anyone who wants to talk about overbought and that just doesn't have the right indicators, because we're not there. So despite what people are thinking, 6,100, we're not in an overbought condition. So there you have it. As always, though, anything relevant, I'll put in the Skype chat for you. Have a good one. Trade well.